Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going way beyond just talking about budgets and, being disciplined with money. Forget the idea that it's all just math.
Yeah, exactly.
We're actually digging into the emotional architecture behind your wallet, why you spend, why you save.
That's right. Look, for ages, we've treated money like it's this purely logical puzzle, something you can fix with a better spreadsheet or just trying harder.
Right.
But the sources we've looked at, they argue pretty strongly that that's just wrong.
Yeah.
Money isn't just numbers. It's tangled up with feelings, who you think you are, your memories, your habits. It's potent stuff.
So all those big decisions, spending, saving, investing, they're often kicked off by a feeling like fear or pride.
Or stress.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even just boredom sometimes. We think we're being rational, but our deep dive shows that mostly these deep, often subconscious feelings are pulling the strings.
Okay, so our mission today for you listening is to give you a tool, awareness. We want to uncover why you spend what you spend so you can actually take control instead of being, pushed around by these hidden emotions.
Precisely. The core idea here is that awareness is step one. If your financial habits are mostly rooted in feelings, then understanding those roots, the triggers, that's the absolute first step. You need that before you can actually reprogram anything for, long-term wealth.
Okay, let's unpack this then. And maybe we should start right where the money changes hands. That immediate gut-level emotional thing that happens every time we buy something. Yeah, the sources definitely back up what we probably feel anyway. Every purchase comes with a feeling attached. It's never just neutral, is it?
Yeah.
You might get that little buzz of excitement or feel comforted, maybe even confident for a minute. And then later, maybe that wave of guilt washes over you.
And this is exactly where the marketing pros come in. They're absolute masters of this emotional game. They're not just selling you a thing. They're selling you a feeling, an identity, an experience.
Right.
They know if they can link their product to a feeling you want, then the actual act of buying becomes almost, automatic. Because you're paying for the feeling, not really the item itself.
Can you give us an example? Because getting that psychological side is so important.
Okay, sure. Let's take a couple of classic ones from the material. Think about a really high-end watch, a luxury watch.
Okay.
It's almost never advertised based on, how well it tells time. A cheap digital watch does that perfectly.
Sure.
Instead, it's sold as success, achievement, status. When you strap it on, you're buying the feeling of being successful, powerful, maybe respected. The watch itself is just a prop for that feeling.
Yeah.
Or think about that fancy coffee you grab every morning. It's not just about the caffeine hit, right? It's marketed, and we buy it. It's this little affordable luxury, a moment of comfort, maybe a ritual, feeling like you belong to a certain, in-the-know crowd. The coffee itself, kind of secondary to the feeling it delivers.
Wow, okay. That completely flips how we think about buying things. If we're really just buying emotions, then the conversation we have in our heads before clicking buy needs to change completely.
It has to. So the key question you, the listener, need to start asking yourself before any non-essential purchase is this. Am I buying this because I genuinely need it, or am I trying to feel something?
Feel something, like confidence or status.
Or validation, yeah. Or maybe just escaping boredom for 5 minutes. Just naming that emotional driver is often enough to break its hold over you.
Okay, so that's the emotional sell. But let's talk about the biological payoff. This is where it gets really interesting, right? The dopamine effect, that buy now high the sources talk about.
Oh yeah, this is a powerful bit of brain chemistry, and modern shopping, especially online, is just perfectly built to exploit it.
Oh, so.
Well, when you see something you want, especially if it's new or seems rare, your brain releases dopamine. Now, people often think dopamine is the pleasure chemical, but it's not really. It's more the anticipation chemical, the wanting chemical. It pushes you to seek.
Ah, okay.
And here's the crucial bit. The big dopamine hit happens before you buy. It's during the hunt, the browsing, the tracking the package, the anticipation, clicking the button. That's when it spikes.
So the brain loves the chase, not the actual catch.
Yeah.
That explains so much, like why the excitement just vanishes almost the second the thing arrives and it's just sitting there.
Exactly. We don't really crave owning stuff nearly as much as we crave the high of chasing it.
The chase is the drug.
Pretty much. And the online world is brilliant at this. They use specific tactics just to ramp up that craving, keep the dopamine flowing until you've paid. Think about it. One-click buying removes all the friction, right? No time to think. Then they add fake urgency, countdown timers, flash sale ending soon, and those little notifications, only 2 left in stock.
Yeah.
Bam. Instant anxiety, pressure to buy now, all the dopamine's high, and your rational brain is basically offline.
Wow. That mix of instant access, no friction, and fake scarcity.
Hmm.
It's just deadly for trying to be careful with money. But if it's biological, how do we fight back? What's the counter move?
Well, the good news is, just understanding this gives you power. The technique is actually pretty simple, but it takes conscious effort. You have to pause before every purchase.
Just pause.
Yeah. If you can deliberately delay buying something non-essential, maybe just for 24 hours you let that dopamine surge calm down, that pause gives the emotional rush time to fade and lets your rational brain, your prefrontal cortex, step back in and ask, wait, do I really need this or was I just chasing the buzz?
Okay, that covers the immediate chemical hit. But let's zoom out a bit. We also need to talk about the huge external pressures shaping our spending now, especially the social comparison trap. The sources really hammer this point. Our benchmark for enough has shifted dangerously.
Oh, absolutely. It used to be, you compared yourself to your neighbor, maybe, or just how you were doing last year versus this year. Local stuff.
Right. Keeping up with the Joneses next door.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now, comparison is global. It's instant. And it's heavily, heavily curated. Social media has basically turned money and what you buy into this nonstop public scoreboard. And we're always looking at other people's scores, often strangers.
And we only see the shiny parts, don't we? The leased BMW, the amazing vacation photos, the designer handbag.
That's real. Yeah.
And seeing that constant stream of success just plants that thought, well, if they have that, I deserve it too, which creates this intense pressure to spend right now.
And that's the hidden trap, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because what you don't see is the full story. You don't see the stress of that huge lease payment or the credit card debt piling up or the regret that often comes with trying to maintain that perfect online image.
Yeah.
The sources are pretty blunt about it. Comparison makes smart people do dumb things with money, like chasing lifestyles they just can't afford, all to keep up with an illusion they saw scrolling on their phone.
But hang on, let me push back slightly. Isn't some comparison, some aspiration healthy? Doesn't it drive ambition? How do we tell the difference between good ambition and like financially toxic comparison?
That's a really critical distinction.
Yeah.
And it comes down to focus. Productive ambition focuses on the process. What skills do I need? What discipline? How much do I need to save? It's about the how.
Okay.
Destructive comparison just focuses on the shiny result, the car, the holiday, and it often tempts you toward shortcuts like debt to get there fast. It skips the process.
Got it. So if comparison is the problem, the mental judo move the sources suggest is to flip it into curiosity.
Exactly. Instead of looking at someone's fancy life and thinking with envy, why can't I have that? Which is just deficit thinking. You train yourself to ask, okay, interesting. What habits, what systems, what process might have helped them get there?
I see.
That immediately shifts your focus away from the impossible thing and onto the potentially achievable process. It turns envy into a learning moment and kills that immediate urge to spend just to keep up.
That makes sense. And it connects really nicely to our next point. How deeply money is tied up with how we see ourselves, our identity. Money is often a way we express who we are, or maybe who we want to be, our money identity.
Oh, definitely. This is huge. It's probably the single biggest reason why two people earning the exact same salary can have wildly different financial lives.
It all comes down to the story they tell themselves about money.
Pretty much, yeah. Money becomes a tool for acting out that story. You have to ask yourself, what's the underlying why behind your spending? Do you spend big because your identity is wrapped up in being the generous one or the provider?
Or do you buy status symbols because you need to project success to people from your past?
Exactly. Or maybe it's not even positive. Sometimes we spend to escape, right?
Escape spending. Tell me more about that.
Well, if you feel stuck, maybe in a job you hate or a life that feels dull, you might adopt the identity of, say, the world traveler or the sophisticated foodie, and you spend heavily on trips or fancy meals.
Using the spending to escape the reality.
Yeah, even if the debt you rack up actually traps you even more. So understanding your personal why, figuring out your core money identity, that's absolutely crucial for spotting these patterns, these emotional spending habits that might be holding you back.
It's about really asking, am I spending this to genuinely make my life better, or am I spending it to kind of perform an identity I haven't quite earned yet?
Right. If your deep down identity is about being trendy, you'll always be chasing the next new thing, probably at the expense of stability. But if your identity shifts towards being, say, secure and free, your spending choices naturally start to lean towards saving and investing. It changes everything.
So where do these money identities even come from? Often they seem to grow out of these really deep-rooted mindsets we pick up, maybe without even realizing it, from childhood or just the culture around us. The sources talk a lot about this big contrast, the scarcity mindset versus the abundance mindset.
Yeah, our whole relationship with money often gets forged really early on. If you grew up hearing things like, money doesn't grow on trees, or we just can't afford that, or maybe you experienced real financial hardship,
Mm-hmm.
you can carry this subconscious link between money and fear or guilt or anxiety right into adulthood, even if you're earning plenty now. Those early messages can really cement what's called the scarcity mindset.
Okay, define that for us. What does a scarcity mindset actually look like?
Yeah.
Sometimes its effects aren't what you'd expect.
Right, so the scarcity mindset is basically this underlying belief that there's just never enough money, resources are limited, opportunities are scarce. It's a constant feeling of lack, and it puts your brain in this kind of low-grade chronic stress mode.
And that stress affects behavior. How?
Well, interestingly, it can lead to two opposite but equally damaging behaviors. On one hand, you might see people obsessively hoarding money, just terrified of losing it, paralyzed by the fear of future poverty.
Okay, like Scrooge McDuck, but driven by fear.
Kind of, yeah. But on the other hand, you can see people doing the complete opposite. Radical overspending. The thinking there is almost like, I'd better enjoy this right now because it's all going to disappear anyway. So you get impulsive splurges, also driven by that same anxiety.
Wow, so both hoarding and splurging can come from the same root fear of lack. That's fascinating.
Yeah, the common thread is that anxiety about the future and a feeling of not being in control.
So how does the abundance mindset work differently? How does it counter that fear?
The abundance mindset comes from a place of confidence, fundamentally. People with this outlet tend to believe that money, well, it slows. It comes through effort, through discipline, creating value, seizing opportunities. They don't see wealth as this fixed pie that everyone's fighting over.
They see it more as renewable.
Exactly. A renewable resource linked to their actions, their ability to solve problems, or create value for others.
And crucially, the sources really stress this. The difference isn't about how much you earn. That's so important for people to get.
Absolutely critical. You can have someone earning a massive salary who's trapped in a scarcity mindset, constantly worried about losing their job or never having enough. The real difference is attitude, behavior. Scarcity just says, I can't afford it, full stop, shuts down thinking.
Right.
Abundance asks, okay, how could I afford it? Which instantly opens up problem-solving, strategy, looking for ways to make it happen.
Okay, speaking of anxiety-driving behavior,
Yeah.
let's talk about a really common habit linked directly to managing those tough emotions. Retail therapy. Emotional spending. This is where those mindsets really show up day to day, isn't it?
Oh, it's a huge drain for so many people. Feeling stressed, lonely, sad, maybe just really bored. And the default coping mechanism becomes buying something.
Using shopping as a quick fix for feeling.
Exactly, instead of dealing with the actual feeling. And yeah, it works for a minute. Well, that dopamine's hitting, but then the bad feeling comes back often worse because now you've got buyer's remorse, maybe more debt on top. It's the classic short-term fix, creating a bigger long-term problem.
It's such a vicious cycle. Feel bad, buy something, temporary relief, feel worse, regret, feel bad. How do you break that loop?
You have to consciously, deliberately replace that spending trigger with something healthier, something non-financial. So when you feel that powerful urge to buy something just because you're stressed or sad, you need a pre-planned alternative action.
Like what? What works?
The sources suggest simple things. Get up and leave the situation, walk away from the computer or the shops, go for a quick 10-minute walk. Changing your environment physically changes your brain state. Maybe journal about the feeling you're trying to numb. Or call a friend and actually talk about what's bothering you.
So redirecting the energy instead of just spending it.
Precisely. And there's a really powerful financial move you can layer on top of this to really cement the new habit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, one source calls it the real flex. You take the exact amount of money you're just about to spend on that emotional purchase,
Okay.
and you immediately transfer it into your savings or investment account, right then and there.
Ah, so you turn the negative impulse directly into a positive financial action.
Exactly. You haven't just avoided spending. You've actively converted stress into savings. That's real control. That's mastering your behavior.
Okay, now, we also have to tackle the quiet killer of financial plans. The idea that small, everyday purchases don't really count. You know, the $5 coffee, the $12 lunch you grab impulsively, the endless $15 a month subscriptions. We tend to just wave them away.
And that dismissal is so, so dangerous because those small, often emotional decisions add up like crazy over time. We get fixated on the big stuff, rent, mortgage, and completely ignore how these daily micro spends shape our financial reality.
Do the sources put numbers on this? Because I think seeing the math really hits home.
They do.
Mm.
And it's pretty stark. Get this. Spending just $10 a day on unplanned extras, that could be a couple of coffees, a snack, maybe an in-app purchase, adds up to $3,650 over a year.
Wow, 10 bucks a day is almost $4,000 a year.
Yeah, just let that sink in.
When you frame it like that, suddenly that small purchase matters a whole lot. That $3,650 could easily be a decent holiday, a solid start to an emergency fund, or a serious boost to your retirement savings.
Absolutely. And beyond the pure math, there's a psychological impact too. Every time you make one of those small, casual, unplanned purchases, you're reinforcing a norm in your brain. You're normalizing money just flowing out without much thought.
You're setting your default behavior.
Exactly. So by changing those tiny habits, by being intentional even with small amounts, you start to change your brain's baseline idea of what's normal for you financially. You swap the casual spending norm for an intentional saving norm.
Let's talk about the world we live in now, because it feels like everything is conspiring against saving money, doesn't it? We're surrounded by instant gratification. Everything's on demand.
Oh, totally. Streaming movies instantly, food delivered in 30 minutes, credit card approval in seconds. Patience feels almost old-fashioned, like a weird inconvenience.
And that filters into our money habits.
Directly. We start craving instant results with our money, too. Fast gains, quick fixes, immediate rewards. But here's the thing. Real wealth building is based on the complete opposite principle.
Delayed gratification.
Exactly. We've basically engineered the wait time, the friction, out of almost every other part of life. So now we really struggle when we face something financial that inherently needs time and patience, like compound interest, slowly working its magic, or just consistently saving month after month.
So the mindset needed for wealth requires us to actively swim against that tide of, I want it now. It's about focusing on the future.
Precisely. Delayed gratification is that conscious choice. Okay, I'm going to prioritize investing this money, maybe sacrifice a little bit of immediate pleasure now so I can have security, freedom, peace of mind later. It means looking beyond the easy dopamine hit of buying something today and valuing the slow, often invisible growth of your assets tomorrow.
I like how the sources frame this as building a muscle. It makes it feel less like deprivation and more like training.
It's a great analogy, isn't it? Every time you consciously choose not to make an unnecessary purchase, you're not just saving, say, 50 bucks. You're doing a rep for your self-control muscle.
Strengthening that ability to resist.
Yeah. And like any muscle, the more you work it, the stronger it gets. That consistency makes the next temptation easier to handle. That self-control, that ability to delay, that's presented as your real financial superpower. It lets you resist all those shiny distractions that constantly try to derail your long-term goals.
Okay, let's bring this back to the why we started with emotion, identity, and ultimately happiness. We have to tackle this big myth that simply having more money automatically equals more happiness. We know money matters for happiness, but the sources point out this crucial concept of diminishing returns.
And the research on this is actually really clear and quite fascinating. Money absolutely boosts happiness, quite dramatically, in fact, but mainly up to a certain point.
What point is that?
It's the point where your basic needs are comfortably met, you feel secure, you can handle an unexpected bill without panicking. Generally, studies put this somewhere around, say, $75,000 to $100,000 a year in income, though it varies with location, of course.
Okay. And after that point,
After that threshold, the happiness boost you get from extra income drops off sharply. It's the law of diminishing emotional returns kicking in.
so getting an extra $1,000 when you're really struggling feels life-changing, but getting an extra $1,000 when you're already earning, say, $150,000, it barely registers emotionally.
Exactly. The impact on your actual day-to-day well-being is tiny by comparison. Once you got that baseline security, just earning more or constantly upgrading your stuff doesn't really deliver much extra sustained joy.
Yet people still chase it, right?
Hmm.
Buying the bigger house, the fancier car.
They do. They mistakenly think that's where the next level of happiness lies. But according to the sources, true, lasting well-being comes more from things like financial security, having agency over your time, feeling free and in control, not from an endless cycle of buying slightly better things you don't really need.
It almost sounds like the harder you chase happiness purely through buying more stuff, the further away real contentment gets, because you're pouring energy into something that just doesn't deliver after a certain point.
That's a great way to put it. And the conclusion from this is really powerful. Maybe you don't actually need more money to be happier right now. Maybe what you need is a better, more intentional relationship with the money you already have.
Wow.
Mastery isn't just about maximizing income. It's about understanding your own behavior, your emotional triggers around money, and optimizing that relationship.
Okay, this brings us perfectly to the final and maybe the most important part. We've established awareness is step one, understanding the emotional traps, the comparison games, the brain chemistry. But awareness isn't enough, right? We need to move to action. How do we take all this insight and actually start to reprogram our financial thinking and behavior?
Right, awareness is crucial, but it's just the starting line. The sources lay out 4 really practical, actionable strategies. These are designed specifically to shift your underlying psychology around money. And the great thing is, they're behavioral changes.
Yeah.
You can start them today, regardless of your income. It's about intentional choices.
Okay, let's break them down. Strategy number one sounds like the direct antidote to that dopamine trap we talked about earlier. Pause before purchase.
Yes, this needs to become non-negotiable for any non-essential buy. Implement a strict 24-hour waiting period, minimum,
Why is that single act so powerful?
because it creates that crucial gap. It separates the emotional impulse that I want it now
Mhm.
feeling from the actual act of spending. It lets the dopamine high fade, forces your rational brain to come back online and ask, do I really need this, or was it just an impulse?
Yeah.
If you still genuinely want it 24 hours later, fine, buy it. But now you know it was a conscious choice, not just a reaction.
Makes sense. Okay, strategy number two involves tracking something different, not just your expenses.
Exactly. You need to start tracking your emotions alongside your spending urges.
Yeah.
Keep a simple note, maybe on your phone or in a notebook. When you feel that urge to spend, quickly jot down, what am I feeling right now?
So identifying the trigger mood.
Precisely. Is it stress from work? Boredom on a Sunday? Feeling inadequate after scrolling Instagram? Once you pinpoint this specific emotional trigger, you can consciously choose a different, healthier response like the walk, or calling a friend instead of just defaulting to the credit card as an emotional band-aid.
Okay. Strategy number three tackles something we all struggle with, willpower. Because that runs out, right? Especially at the end of a long day.
Oh, absolutely. Willpower is finite. Relying on it to manually transfer money to savings or investments each month is setting yourself up to fail eventually. Life gets busy, you get tired, you forget, or you just don't feel like it.
So the solution is
Automate the good habits. Set up automatic transfers for savings, for investments. Make it happen the day you get paid, before the money even hits your main account, before you see it, or get tempted to spend it emotionally.
making the good choice the default easy choice, taking willpower out of the equation.
Exactly. That's how you build consistency.
Okay, and the final strategy number four. This one links back to identity again.
Yes. It's about changing how you celebrate wins. Reward progress, not consumption.
What does that mean in practice?
Instead of celebrating getting a promotion or hitting some goal, by immediately going out and buying something expensive, which is just reinforcing the link between happiness and spending. Find other ways to celebrate. Celebrate the consistency of saving. Celebrate hitting an investment milestone. Celebrate paying off debt.
So you're training your brain to associate positive feelings with financial growth and security, not just with buying stuff.
You got it. You're literally rewriting your brain's reward pathways around money.
That feels incredibly empowering. The message here seems to be that even though these emotional forces around money are strong and we can't change past mistakes, we absolutely can reshape our financial future. It comes down to these deliberate, conscious, behavior-based choices. Hashtag tag outro.
Absolutely. So, if we boil down this whole deep dive, the core insight is really this. Money is deeply emotional, yes. It's driven by all sorts of primal stuff like fear, status-seeking, impulse. But achieving financial mastery, that's entirely intentional.
Yeah.
It's behavioral.
Yeah.
The path to building wealth isn't just about complex spreadsheets or market timing. It's paved with understanding your own psychology. Honestly, the people who are truly successful financially are often the ones who understand their own behavior the best. Get a handle on your emotions, learn to manage them, your finances tend to follow.
That's such a powerful takeaway. Our inner world really does create our outer financial reality. Okay, let's leave our listeners with a final thought to chew on this week, building on all this. If spending is partly about expressing identity, what's one small non-monetary habit you could start this week that reflects the identity you truly want to embody?
Yeah, great question.
Maybe it's spending 30 minutes learning a skill instead of browsing online shops. Maybe it's finally starting that creative project you keep putting off. Just think, what action, unrelated to buying things, reinforces the person you aspire to be? Don't forget to subscribe. And thanks for watching.